right, can you hear us, Sheila?
I can.
All right. The time is 7:01 p.m. and I will call the meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Reichel,
Here.
Pro Tem Hanrahan, Trustee Britnall,
Here.
Trustee Clausen,
Here.
Trustee Flores, Trustee Seifert.
Here.
All right, may we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, be seated. The first item on tonight's agenda is public comments. Persons desiring to make public comments on items not on the agenda, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or do we have any phone calls or emails in regards to non-agenda items?
No, I did not hear from anyone today.
Okay.
I do not have any raised hands, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And everyone here, I think, is here for an agenda.
Agenda items, okay.
Yep.
All right. Easy enough. Then we will move on to the consent agenda, which contains the minutes of the May 8th, 2023 Board of Trustees meeting, the amendment to the Mountain Waste and Recycling, Inc. For waste removal and recycling services agreement, and the Good to Go stores approving renewal of a fermented malt beverage and wine license. Would anyone like to discuss any of those or make a motion?
I would just like to mention that Doug with Mountain Waste is with us tonight.
Okay. Do we want to talk to Doug before we?
No, I think he's pretty.
I don't see any
Any
reason.
reason to? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Trustee Seifert to approve the consent agenda as presented, seconded by Trustee Clausen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do any board members have any conflicts of interest with agenda items tonight?
Nope.
No, sir.
None for me either. Do we have any agenda changes by the board or staff?
No, just that one I talked to you about maybe, but that's about
I
it.
don't have any.
Trustee Seifert had brought up that maybe we should postpone the appointments to various committees until we have a full board. Is staff okay with that? Okay.
Yep. And I think probably we need to just have a conversation about, I was gonna bring this up, that, you know, some of those, we probably need to reevaluate whether some of those committees are still germane, so.
Okay.
Maybe we need to go back and review those a little bit and then come back and report to you what they were there for in the first place.
Okay, all
And
right.
how active they are.
Okay, we will postpone it this evening then and continue on a different agenda. Any other agenda changes? No? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the interview for the Board of Trustee vacancy, and we had one applicant, Andrea Posted. If you'd like to come up to the table.
Introduce myself and know the address.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good evening. My name is Andrea Poston. I live at 542 Ballard Avenue in Silt, Colorado. And I'm here for the trustee position. Mayor Reichert, you may proceed with the questions.
Okay. Any board members have any questions for Andrea?
I have a question.
Yes.
Obviously, you were on the board before.
Yes.
And then you were gone for a while, and now you're back. So I'm assuming you feel some sort of need to be back on the board. And I guess what is your desire, your overall desire, need to getting back on the board?
Okay, it is important for me to be part of the discussion and the decision making. I think being a Silt citizen and with a little bit of the business background I do have, and connecting with people on a personal level, I feel that that's a really good, I would call it a skill that I could potentially bring to the board, but that's my drive. Having served for the town of Silt for over three years, I decided to step back and reevaluate my schedule, work schedule. I'm taking classes at CMC, and now I've moved things around a little bit to where I'm working closer to home. Instead of Carbondale, I'm in Rifle, and now I have assigned classes that do not interfere with my schedule with the town. So aligning things and timing, it's important for me to take care of my own family and to be able to be able to serve at my best capacity. So I feel I'm there now, and I do want to serve the best way I can and apply every single knowledge and skill that I do have, and I do it from a place of passion.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I saw that in your thing that you just moved from the Carbondale branch to the Rifle branch. I'm sure that's nice. It's about, what,
10 minutes.
an hour every day. We'll say probably an hour and a half every day times 5 days. That's almost a full work day that you don't have to be on the road anymore. That's probably a huge benefit.
Yes, and I'm closer to home.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
No, I have no
I don't really have any
Pretty straightforward.
questions.
Okay. I have no questions either. We worked previously on the board. We do have just a, I don't know if staff has a copy. We did have a recommendation letter from Trustee Hanrahan, or Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan now, expressing his support for reappointment of Andrea Post into the town trustee position. So,
That's very kind of him.
barring, I guess, any other further discussions, someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve Andrea Poston to the board trustee vacancy position.
So
I
you
was like, God dang it.
dueling motion.
All right, we have a motion by Trustee Seifert to appoint Andrea Poston to the Board of Trustee vacancy. That was seconded by Trustee Brittenell. All is in favor?
Aye.
All is opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, last time I was surrendering right away. I don't know if
That's
I'm ready.
we're doing it again.
So we got the seat up here for you.
Now you're at the opposite end. You're at the other end
Okay.
this
Oh
time.
my gosh! I
You have a
got
name
all the
tag, too?
sides. Center. Just send out the old one. Okay. We can step right up here. Front and center. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. I, Andrea Poston. Do affirm that I will support. Do affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States. And the state of Colorado. And the state of Colorado. And the laws of the state of Colorado. And the laws of the state of Colorado. And the charter and ordinances of the town of Silt. And the charters and ordinances of the town of Silt. And will faithfully perform the duties. And will faithfully perform the duties. Of the office of trustee. Of the office of trustee. Upon which I'm about to enter into the best of my ability. In which I'm about to enter in the best of my abilities. Thank you.
Did you have to wear such tall shoes? Poor Sheila.
Yes, I will enter with my tall shoes. Should I go ahead?
Andrea, look, there's even a name tag for you
Oh my
already. How about
gosh, you guys,
that?
yes,
Is she a picture of efficiency or what?
Yeah, exactly.
I will leave the oath, you can just give that to me. Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank
back,
you
yes.
very
Thanks,
much.
Doug.
Yeah, thank you, Doug.
Thank you,
Hey,
Doug.
short work tonight. Thanks for coming.
My night's short. It doesn't look like yours is.
It's gotten shorter. A little bit at a time.
All right, next up then is resolution number 15, series 2023, A resolution of the Board of Trustees approving an agreement for professional services with Sustainable Strategies for management and grant services for the town of Silt, Colorado. I will turn this over to Administrator Lehman.
Deborah Figueroa is with us tonight. You want to come up, Deborah? And you've got your presentation all ready to go, right? Yeah, I know. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I told Deborah I didn't think she had to prepare anything for tonight, but she's got it all right here, so I'm
Okay.
sure she'll be able to answer any questions. You'll recall a couple weeks ago, we talked with Deborah, who's a principal with Sustainable Strategies and a former city manager with Glenwood Springs. And we talked about having her and Sustainable Strategies providing some services for the town for not only the water plant that we're currently working on, but then also kind of rolling us into the, kind of gearing us up for the wastewater plant, which is kind of down the road, and kind of positioning us for that process as well. We'd like to be ahead of the 8 ball on that one rather than in the middle of it like we are right now with the water plant. But so after that presentation, the board directed staff to negotiate a contract with Sustainable Strategies with the help of our attorney. We've accomplished that. The agreement is for 1 year at $5,000 a month. We do have a 30-day cancellation provision in there, and I did attach the agreement, even though I did not attach the correct memo, so forgive me for that. I think between Deborah and I, we can answer any questions that you might have. Otherwise, we'd be looking for you to approve the resolution tonight of approving the agreement.
No, I think it's pretty much what we talked about last time that I read through. I didn't see anything different, so I got no more questions.
I was just gonna say if I can have just a quick briefing of the services, basic services that we'll be providing. I probably will not vote tonight because I did not have a chance to read the agenda, but it would be nice just to have a quick overview of the basic service that will be rendered.
I will do my best.
Quick, if yes, just elevator.
My firm, Sustainable Strategies DC, is the main office is based out of Washington DC. There is a Denver office. I work remotely in Glenwood Springs still. So, what the agreement is for? It's for 4 grants and then also like management support services.
So you'd be writing the grants?
Yes, we write in the grants.
Okay.
And then also kind of like helping staff with, like, for instance, we already have a meeting set up with DOLA for Wednesday. I'm going to come Wednesday, tour your facilities, kind of learn more about your water and sewer, not just your plants, but also your like general issues you may have. Like, do you have A&I? Do you have leaking issues? Or what projects can we work on in your utilities?
Okay.
And then start working on those.
Perfect. It sounds good. Yeah.
I think it'll definitely in the end be a
Yes,
great,
we know how much
great thing, yeah.
value for those grants we
Grants,
can
yeah.
potentially have for the town, so.
yeah. This is just an action item, not a public hearing, so there's
I don't have anything
for
to
the
add.
It's pretty much straightforward from the last
Talked
time.
about
that I
most
seen,
things from
so-
the last meeting.
okay. All right. Someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion approving resolution number 15, series 2023, a resolution of the Board of Trustees approving an agreement for professional services with Sustainable Strategies for management and grant services for the town of Silt, Colorado.
Second.
And what would be the best way for me to say it? I agree, but I
You
didn't.
can abstain.
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 Abstain from the vote, yeah.
But yes, you have my support. Go ahead.
Okay. We have a motion by Trustee Clausen to approve resolution number 15, series 2023, seconded by Trustee Britnall. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed?
I
Mo-
abstain.
All right, motion passes 4-0 with Trustee Poston abstaining. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you, Deborah.
Guess we better roll up our sleeves now, huh?
Yep.
Okay.
Time to get to work.
Yeah, that's right. Take care, Deborah. Thank you for coming.
Next up is River Trace, Lot 3 at Painted Pastures Development Agreement. And I will turn this over to Planner Chain.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, we're going ahead of schedule, and now
So
we hit
far,
the
so
planning
good.
items.
Yeah, I know, yeah, it's always a trouble, isn't it?
No, hopefully tonight is pretty straightforward, but this one is pretty straightforward. Lot 3, I've called it River Trace. It's also the Village of Painted Pastures. It's also called Bell Vista. This is Lot 3. It's the eastmost lot south of the roundabout, the new roundabout. So the Village of Painted Pastures was annexed in 2020. There was a minor subdivision, and there were some improvements constructed. A lot of them had to do with, the initial ones had to do with the roundabout itself. Then there's been a site plan approved for each of the 3 lots. Lot 2 has all the multifamily units on it. A few of those buildings are going up right now. Lot 3 was the next one, and that has some self-storage units on it. And then there's a commercial development on Lot 1, which is to the west. Neither Lot 1 or 3 have anything going vertical yet. Right now, they are ready to put in the remaining infrastructure on Lot 3. It's relatively sparse, and by that, I mean there'll be some electric and some signage out there at the right in, right out, and there's also a water line going in. And how we've been handling it is was a subdivision improvements agreement, and if necessary, there'll be these little development agreements with each of those 3 lots. So this is one we were even, I was wondering, does this need to go to the board? But if I'm having the mayor sign something in its development agreement, I didn't want him to be chatting with some members and they go, a development agreement? What's a development agreement? Anyway, so this is a full disclosure. I think the improvements are worth about $15,000 or somewhere in that range. I do have Russ Hatley attending virtually, as well as the planner, Doug Pratt. Unless either of you have anything to say, guys, I don't know if you need to make a presentation. And with that, I'll open it up to the board and to the mayor for any questions. And this is not a public hearing.
I'm just trying to read, is this fenced in? Is that what that X is around, or is this gonna be fenced or not?
Yes. Yes, it will be.
It is, okay,
Yes.
I couldn't see it, it has all the X's, but I didn't really say what that was. I assumed
If I
that was.
remember right, in the initial agreement,
I thought that's
it's
not,
like a privacy fence. So if I remember correctly, it's not just like a chain link fence. I mean, it can be chain link, but I believe there's some privacy to it, so you're not.
slots in between. Okay, I didn't, that's what I talked about, but I didn't see it specifically on here, so I just wanted to make sure.
Doug could answer better with that, but there were some fencing requirements with the ditch, which I think they were on Lot 2, not on Lot 3. And that was for protection for no trespassing, and we made them sort of spruce it up a little. But there is a fence around the improvements here.
Okay,
And Doug, if I misspeak, please correct me. He hasn't spoken, so I guess we're okay.
Okay.
Hi, Mark. This is Doug. Yes, there is a fence around Lot 3, which is the storage facility.
And I guess just to, refresh everyone, so the right in, right out was there because of CDOT?
Yes, that was part of the access permit. They did not want a full movement intersection, or should I say a 3-movement intersection. So, and I'm not sure why, but everybody has agreed to that, and they've already smoothed in the road in that area for it.
Okay.
scan in. The only thing I was wondering about is I know we have, like, there's a line in here about dust and erosion control. Do we have anything in these agreements about keeping their mud off the road? And all these construction sites always seem to drag mud out on Highway 6 and then it's there forever.
I'm not certain, but we can look for that, and if it needs to be added, we can add it.
Okay.
And yeah,
You're
so-
right, that is it can be a problem certain times a year, and we may be through that time of year, but we may not.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it really depends on how long this
we'll check it.
takes them to construct. I mean,
that was going to be my question. So they're on Highway 6 improvements. How long are they anticipating that to take? Because I know the median's done and everything. It just looks like they need to finish.
It shouldn't be long at all. Do you happen to know off the top of your head, Trey?
No, I don't.
Okay.
It should be pretty simple, actually.
I've got nothing further on this one.
I don't have anything else.
No, that was my only question was,
Okay. Trustee Brittenell, you?
I'm good.
Trustee Poston? Good, okay. All right. Anyone like to make a motion?
Did you want a motion?
Was
Oh,
there really
is-
a motion, is it?
No, this
I don't
one's
know,
just an action item,
item,
yep.
so yeah.
oh,
It was
okay.
just more just make
Yeah.
sure everybody had, everything
It
was
was more
out
an
in the open on it.
informational item.
Yeah.
Ready for motion?
Ready for motion, if you're ready.
Make a motion to approve, where am I at here?
Development
Lot
agreement for
three,
Lot
the
3.
Painted Pastures Development Agreement.
Okay.
Oh, wait, yeah, I'm off one line.
All right. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All right.
Sorry, I was reading.
We have a motion by trustee Seifert to approve the River Trace Lot 3 at Painted Pastures Development Agreement. That was seconded by trustee Clausen. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Sorry, it was off one line when I seen it.
Thank you, Planner Chan.
Okay.
All right. Now it's the big one of the evening.
There we go, I was off one line.
The next item on the agenda is resolution number 16, series 2023. A resolution of the town of Silt, Colorado approving the major subdivision preliminary plan for properly formerly known as the Divide Creek Center and now commonly known as Rislinda Planned Unit Development. This one will be a public hearing, but I'll go ahead and turn it
Okay.
over to Planner Chan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Sheila, can I take control of the screen, please?
You most certainly can. It's all yours.
Okay, do I have it? Do you? Yep, okay, you can see it, okay. Let me get to a bigger map here. There we go, this is, there we go. Okay, this is a preliminary subdivision plan for the Rislinda property, and this is where you look at all the engineering and infrastructure. And in this case, it's really an infrastructure exercise, and it's also about putting in a loop road, which will be right here, if you can look at the screen. The big loop is down around here and going over to the east. And then this is a shared driveway over here. This goes from, I think it's Rislinda Loop over to Rippling Way, and over to the far east is the BLM property. Just so everyone knows, this will be the frontage road, and right here is the county road, and over right here is Holiday Inn. So, and Sheila, looks like Chad is trying to get into the room here, the waiting room. Okay, in terms of the background, I'm not going to go into the background for the Divide Creek Center, but you saw a lot of information for Rislinda, the Divide Creek Center, here last year, and you had a subdivision sketch plan, and you also had PUD rezoning. And that's where you saw a lot of the information come to you, and I'll get to that in just a second. And by the way, also here, Roger Neal, who is the chief engineer for High Country Engineering. Doug Pratt, the planner, is also listening in at the meeting. Chad Lee, their attorney, and I think Mitchell.
Mitchell and Dennis were supposed to be here.
Okay.
I think they were thinking it didn't start till 7:55.
Okay. We're ahead of schedule. Okay. And anyway, so this is preliminary subdivision plan where you look at the engineering and infrastructure. And in this case, I said it's pretty much an infrastructure exercise, a little bit of roadway. It's not a preliminary plan where you're looking at 105 lots or anything like that. The Planning Commission looks at the preliminary plans and they made a recommendation to you for approval with conditions. And now it comes to you, and I have it as approving a resolution, which you, if you decide to approve, to me, it's always best to have a resolution to show that there was action taken on an application. And the next step would be the final plat or final plan. And a lot of that is actually a lot of legal documentation, things they need to fulfill. For Rislenda, and this is a 51-acre project, the real heavy lifting is going to be when they come in for a site plan for the various parcels. And there'll be 7 of them over time. And what is supposed to happen is the next step will be for parcel number 1, which will be a 72 multifamily development next to BLM, and that is right there. Okay, so let me go back to the introduction here. And I think we've been through enough who the applicants are, the size of the property. It's zone PUD right now. And we've been through that in this entire year. It's 51 acres. Here's the site itself. As you can see, it's basically directly north of the town park. I'm putting in here just for background for you. Here's the phasing development schedule. And track 3 is the beacon. That's where they hope to have the first thing developed, the gathering spot. Track 1, they hope to get going right away. That's a multifamily residential. And then track 6, they're doing planning for that right now. That's where the event center is. Just a quick encapsulation. Total number of dwelling units, 160. There's 72 with the multifamily project. There's 72 residential units as part of mixed-use buildings along the frontage road, and then some minor residential in the central part of the project. You have an event center where they can develop 20,000 square feet per acre. Maximum lot coverage is 70%. And the maximum building size in the entire development is 30,000 square feet. General building heights, 25 feet in the lodging district. The event center, that can be taller. That can be up to 40 feet and 35 feet in the multifamily residential district. I then have some data in there for open space and landscaping. And if you remember the discussions we had during the sketch plan and the zoning, a lot of the discussion was about the paths. Path along the frontage road, paths down to the river, and that information has been submitted. I sent you under separate cover, separate Dropbox, a link to the entire preliminary plan application. It's quite extensive. It's a lot of pages. About half of it really is a drainage report, more of, well, isn't it? About right? Yeah. Yeah. And I just, in bullet points, I just basically said, you have a geotech study, a noxious weed analysis, the civil engineering report, grading and drainage, a traffic impact study, which is a refinement of what they had before, an historical water use affidavit that was done by their legal team, a wetland delineation report, a landscape plan, which in this case is pretty much geared towards the frontage road itself. And then there's the outline of covenants, conditions, and restrictions, and that's just an outline. It's not a final draft. Most of the studies here have been reviewed by Boundaries Unlimited, and we have sent this information to High Country Engineering. They are working on answering all the questions. A lot of the things are to be submitted at time of final. I know they're working on it right now because I've talked to Roger about a number of things, but basically you have things like some culverts may need to be added to provide more freeboard. There's a location of 2 where drainage flows may exceed the capacity of a single curb inlet. The town engineer requires additional analysis to be completed and provided with the final plat. FEMA should be asked to review the berm between the detention pond and the river as a flood control dike, and they have seen that in the past. In terms of Clomar, I think the town engineer was thinking more about the structural integrity of that. And there are some miscellaneous utility items. So I'm not going to bore you with that. If you have questions, we have Roger here. We do not have the town engineer here tonight because we didn't think it was that extensive a discussion. As a matter of fact, this is one of those projects I talked to Doug Pratt, the planner, who's remotely here, is I didn't have much to say. Usually I'm beating up on projects. They need to provide this, they didn't provide that. I would like you to change X, Y, and Z. That's not the case here. To me, that's a good thing. About the only thing that merited discussion at the Planning Commission level was the sidewalk or walkway with the loop road. And the applicants would like to present a 6-foot wide sidewalk and then look at the sidewalk for each individual tract when there's a site plan. It's 10 feet when there is a commercial or mixed-use development. Now, I think that standard, a lot of that was set for either you're thinking of a pretty big shopping center, or mixed use, you're thinking of something on Main Street where, it'd be good to have something close to 10 foot in width so it's comfortable walking. The Planning Commission, and I asked the Planning Commission to talk about it, and I could go either way. The Planning Commission, after discussion, they think that it is probably best to go with a 6-foot. It's designed right now for that loop road, and then look very significantly at each of the various site plans that you'll see in the future. And that's really my entire presentation here. Staff findings: the preliminary plan plat submittal is consistent with the sketch plan approvals that were obtained in the fall of 2022. Applicant has made a complete application, and town staff, after appropriate review and agencies, we have reviewed this submittal and find that it is in conformance with the town subdivision regulations and the sketch plan that was approved last year, as well as harmonious with the PUD zoning. So the staff recommendation is that any representations in writing or made at public hearing in front of the Planning Commission or the Board of Trustees are considered conditions of approval, that the applicant update all information as directed by the town engineer, and in good faith try to resolve these issues and have these updates prepared for the submittal of the final plat, that no development will occur until there is an approved site plan review for each individual tract, that a plat note or other approval condition be added to require individual stormwater management and pollution treatment for each individual tract upon development or site plan review, and 5, that the applicant can provide a sidewalk 6 foot in width as indicated on the loop road right-of-way. 10-foot wide sidewalks will be considered at time of each site plan review for each parcel, and decisions made on the width of the sidewalk at that time. The Planning Commission, that was their motion for approval with those conditions, and their findings were unanimous. And with that, I'm open to questions before asking the applicant if they have any presentation to make.
I have a quick question on number 4 from the Planning Commission. So each individual tract will have basically its own storm sewer. They're not going to connect when it's all done. Is that correct?
I don't think that precludes that, but I'll let you talk to that, Roger.
There's not a central storm sewer system. They'll do their own individual storm detention on site.
Okay.
So the only ones that actually have kind of a central, and it's just because they're adjacent to the pond that's in the middle, that will have its own stormwater detention at that location.
Okay.
So there's 3 lots.
Mr. Mayor, we cannot hear what that gentleman is saying.
I was just gonna ask you to step up to the table there and repeat what you said, yeah. So Sheila knows what you said.
Hi, Roger Neal with High Country Engineering. So to reiterate, the individual lots will all have their own storm sewer or storm detention requirements. The 3 lots around the pond do have the ability to use the pond for storm detention. And those are lots 5, 3, and 2.
Okay, thank you.
And just for the record, please note that Mitchell Weimer and the present owner of the property, Dennis Caruth, are now here. So we're ahead of schedule, so we kept going through.
Sorry, we're late.
No, any other questions before handing it over to the applicants?
I've got nothing.
No, I have one more. On the 10-foot sidewalks, to be considered, it just, my thought is just to have them all consistent. Instead of, 10 foot here, 6 foot, 10 foot. I mean, I understand the 6 foot around the loop, but I mean, in the future, it says 10 foot wide sidewalks will be considered at time of each site plan. And I just was thinking if you, consider 10-foot sidewalk on one, maybe just do it on all of them, just so you're consistent.
I think their point was if something is relatively low density and it has good pedestrian access, do you really need to go to 10? There will be places where they'll want 10 foot wide, but I think it was meant to be flexible.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's all I have at the moment.
I have a couple questions if nobody else has any. So the road width is being shown as 30 feet. Will there be on-street parking?
I haven't even thought of that one, no.
I don't believe we planned on on-street parking.
I don't think you did.
It's parallel parking on one side. That's visa lots.
Yeah, we discussed there wasn't, I don't remember. Can't remember that far back. I thought we talked about no on-street parking, but I don't remember.
I'm concerned, track 2 is gonna be 72 units. That overflow parking is going to be on that street, so I think at this point, we need to know whether and if there's gonna be any on-street parking, then 30 feet, in my opinion, is not a wide enough street for on-street parking.
No.
You go through these neighborhoods in town that are on-street parking and 30 feet wide, and you can't get through there.
Turns into an alternating one way.
Well, there just won't be enough room for emergency vehicles to get down. There's cars on both sides too. I mean, that's gonna be pretty narrow. You take 30 and you take 8, 16, 20 feet almost off for parking. That's only gonna leave you at 10 foot.
Yeah, they just said on-street parking on one side, so that's
Side,
one.
but still, but they're gonna park.
They're gonna park wherever.
They're gonna park wherever, is what I'm getting at, is just gonna be. I thought we talked about they were gonna have spots.
So, Mayor, I would comment on that. Where we're doing 30-foot roadways in other projects, what we typically do is we'll sign for parallel parking along one side of that road and restrict no parking on the other side. So you only have one side where there's parking allowed on a 30-foot wide road, which works well. I mean, there's plenty of room for cars.
And tract 2 is not 72 units. I don't know how that number came out.
It's actually tract 1 is 72.
Okay.
Feet.
Tract 1, 72. Okay, I'm looking at the wrong. Okay, so tract 1 is, okay. Yeah, I see what's going on. I got two different pictures here that I'm not seeing the overlap on. I think it's, and I appreciate you saying 30 feet works in other subdivisions. I'm not worried about other subdivisions. I'm worried about subdivisions going in Silt. And I think 30 feet is way too narrow. I live on a one-way street that's not even 30 feet with parking on one side, and it's a pain to get down. If you're pulling a landscape trailer through there with parking on one side, two-way traffic, it's a mess. I really think we owe it to our citizens and the future citizens of this parcel to make their lives easier. So I would like to see what we can do on road width. I do agree with Chris that I think we need to set a standard for what sidewalks are going to be. The whole thing, there was a whole lot of conversation about this parcel about and how walkable and bike friendly and stuff like that it's going to be. I think it only makes sense to have 10-foot sidewalks if that's the purpose of it. And then I have a concern with using I'm not an engineer, but a detention pond to me sounds like a mosquito breeding area.
Yeah.
If there's no.
It's actually, they're gonna, is it okay if I speak?
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a decorative pond as well, so there's gonna be 10 foot of established depth, and they're going to, treat it and make it an actual nice looking pond lake. So they will have water rights, and they're establishing the water rights to keep that filled.
Okay. So I don't know if that's, I don't know how you word that in agreement that it will be maintained and kept to a minimum of a mosquito breeding ground. I think without aeration and constant water moving, it's still, if it's stagnant water.
Yeah, I agreed. And to keep it a nice pond, they do need to keep it aerated and keep it treated.
I'll come up with some language and we can review it.
From there.
It may end up being more of a final plan thing, and we may be able to deal with the roadway width for that loop street or a section of the loop street. And if everyone is pleased with the layout for the circulation and parking for tract 1, maybe the board then can make a finding that that width of the loop road is satisfactory. I'm not a fan of extra asphalt if you don't need it, but if you need it, then you need it. So maybe there is a way to deal with that. You're taking the risk of installing that width of a street, and then if it doesn't meet muster, you may have to make adjustments in the future. That's what I'm throwing out to you.
The way to deal with it is to have no parking on the road. Keep the road width 30 feet.
Yeah, I mean, that is an option. I mean, a 30-foot road for two-way traffic is fine with nobody parked there.
Yeah.
But I think that further down could become an issue when we see a development plan for tract 1 with parking in regards to the number of units going in there.
We've already increased our parking requirements for multifamily. right? Remember that
Yeah.
conversation, right? So that's gonna come up in the site plan review for track one.
The site development plan will have on-site parking to meet the requirements for the multifamily.
Family. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm fine with 30 feet as long as it's in this agreement that it's gonna be a no parking on the street, at least the Roslynda Loop and Rippling Way. I mean, we don't know potentially what could develop on track 3, 4 that could be, you know, have on-street parking available for those commercial uses, so. And then I don't know how everyone else feels about sidewalks, but I would like to see the 10-foot sidewalks in the agreement for everywhere within or a minimum 10-foot sidewalk in this agreement, so.
So the sidewalks basically, with our site plans when we come in, I mean, where there's dense pedestrian use is where the 10-foot sidewalks are gonna wanna be. But if we wanna have links to other areas of the development, we'd like to have that ability to have lesser sidewalks just to keep the costs down. So if, you know, say we have a high concentrated, like the Beacon area, you know, in front of that, you're gonna want 10-foot sidewalks to have all that pedestrian use.
If not 12, 16, or 20, right, for outdoor seating and people to have doors open and that sort of thing, so, for sure.
But then if that connects over to, you know, the housing site, that sidewalk's really not gonna wanna be 10 feet.
And the sidewalk along the frontage road is 8 feet.
Yeah, the frontage, the loop road there, we have a 6-foot sidewalk around the entire loop. So that does provide one connection between lots if we get out to that sidewalk.
So my question is, the 30-foot right-of-way, is that 30 feet for just the street, or is that right-of-way including the street and sidewalk?
Just the street.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, the sidewalks reside in the easements on the outside.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
And so what you're gonna see from us over the longer term is our preference for a 6-foot sidewalk as connecting, you know, arteries throughout the development. And then when we get to storefronts, that's where you're gonna see the 10-foot sidewalks, because you want the ability to open a door and not get in people's way, or put, you know, chairs or planters or things outside and again, not be in people's way. But around that loop and as we think about sort of our interior bike paths and connecting sidewalks, our preference is a 6-foot width for those.
So planner chain, how do we write that so we review each sidewalk brought to us individually?
Well, that's in your site plan review standards, so that would come under review at that particular time. Like for tract 1 here for the multifamily, and let's say track here, which is the future event center, when they come in, you know, see what they're proposing.
Okay.
I like the idea of having consistency, because I think in the long run it looks better for the town. We see our cute little town of Silt, and we'll be walking and we'll have this larger, whatever we decide on the number of what that width will be. But then suddenly you're walking, and then in the next street it's a much smaller one. So you see the inconsistencies over the town as well. So that concerns me a little bit. And I would like to see something more consistent all throughout, especially with new developments. And we've discussed in the past how new developments come into town and that we make concessions, but then it's a combination of the work of the developer, but also knowing that they are also investing for the town with something that they're going to get back as well. But it's a conversation, and we have to continue to protect the Silt and what the vision for Silt. And I think we need to continue to be strong about those conversations and making sure that as the board, we are ensuring that that's happening. So I would be looking more into a more consistent, and as we are looking into on a case-by-case basis, should be looking at that going forward too, analyzing what the vision is for the specific area.
I would just say to that, just keeping in mind, this is a little bit more rural out here than like being on the town main street.
I understand.
And you're gonna see that consistency in front of the storefronts and in front of the residences. You're not gonna see 10 feet go to 6 feet back to 10. We're gonna be consistent in front of those buildings, in front of those storefronts. We're looking for 6 feet as the sidewalk along the road. And so almost under this.
Mr. Mayor, could we have him come up to the microphone, please?
Under this loop road, to the south side of it, you're gonna see a 6-foot sidewalk. And then within tract 1 or within tract 2, to the north of that, you're gonna have parking, you're gonna have store frontage, you're gonna see the footprints and trees in front of those storefronts as people are moving from door to door and they're doing their shopping or whatever. That's where you're gonna see a consistent 10-foot sidewalk. But out along that street where you almost think of it as a jogging trail or as a way to get from the very east end to the very west end of the development, that's where you're gonna see a consistent 6-foot walk. And so it's almost like the sidewalk that's in front of your house versus, which is consistent, versus the sidewalk that you see here on Main or on 7th, which is also consistent, but they're 2 different widths because they serve different purposes.
I think as long as we have the ability to review each one as it comes, then I guess we don't need to have it put in this document, this resolution.
And if you need a visual, just so on the sidewalks, we're 6 foot wide from Main Street up to Grand on that side of the road. That's 6 foot. Our paved trails that are bike trails and everything, they're actually 8 foot wide. So that can give you some, and then down on Main Street, I think
It's
we're
10, I believe.
I think it's 12.
Or 12, okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but it could be 10, but I think it's a little more than 10. So that gives you kind of an idea of the sizes they're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was my biggest concern. Like you stated, I don't want to see big, then narrow, then big, then narrow. Just more consistency. And, the wider sidewalk, obviously better walkability, and you have space to plant trees and all that along there.
Okay. Trustee Britnell, do you have any?
You guys covered it.
Okay. Entertain, anything else you'd like to add, or?
I have nothing more to say at this time. Do you want to make any kind of presentation or comment before we go to public hearing?
I think Doug might have a few slides remotely, but we don't have anything. Is Doug on?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, he was.
We can't hear what you're saying because you're not close enough to the microphones.
Apologize again, I'm sorry. I think Doug's got a few slides he's put together for a bit of a presentation.
Unmute.
Thanks. I've been waiting to be unmuted. So, I don't have presentation slides except for, the overall image that Mark had. I did want to just support, however, the 10-foot width that is triggered for mixed-use development is really triggered by the commercial aspects of the mixed-use development. So while our PUD in most of those zone districts allows for a mix of residential and commercial activity, it's a commercial activity that's triggering the 10-foot sidewalk. So should projects come in with a commercial activity for site plan review, that commercial activity will be required to have 10-foot sidewalks per your code. So I think everybody's kind of said that, but I just wanted to qualify that it really is a commercial activity that is triggering the need for the 10-foot sidewalk, or at least your code says the need for the 10-foot sidewalk. So that would be determined at site plan review in compliance with your code.
Okay.
Okay, that's our only comment for now. I'd suggest we go to public hearing. And
I got one more on. It's going to be
okay.
on. It's going to be sheet 6. Which I don't know if that helps or not, but for it says on the right-hand side between Tract 1 and the BLM parcel. It's just noted in there. It says 15-foot access easement to be completed with Government Silt LLC.
That's correct. We're working through that with Rebecca. She maintains the Government Silt LLC. And so it's basically at the attorneys writing up the language
Okay.
to set that easement terms between us and BLM.
And BLM, okay. And then how about we had discussed I don't know if I remember correctly, on the west end, the trail to the river, even though we're not going underneath the bridge, the hard pack trail, I don't see that on any of these drawings.
So, actually, Derek had a comment on that, and it was apparently a misunderstanding from me, but that is a path that actually goes all the way down from the bike path on the frontage road. On my plans, it's shown going down from that access road going into Tract 4, and it goes down to the river right alongside the west property line there.
okay,
And that shows up, it's actually out in the right of way for part of that too. Look on sheet 8.
I'm cut off.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was supposed to go all the way up.
It is.
Okay.
And sorry, Doug did correct me on that. I missed that in the first round of comments. But that is extended all the way up to
Okay.
the frontage road.
Okay. All right. Other than that, I've got nothing else, so we can.
No, I've got no
we can
more.
Do the public hearing if you guys are all right with that, and then we'll go from there, so. The time is 7:59 PM, and I will open up the public hearing in regards to resolution number 16, series 2023. Persons desiring to make public comments on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, did we have any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, sir, we did not.
Okay.
I do not show any raised hands, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. And everyone here in the chambers with us is part of the presentation, so. So the time is now 8 PM, and I will close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion. I think the road width, did we all agree that we're just going to do no on-street parking? So I think we need
Yes.
to mention that in the approval or in the motion. And it sounds like we can deal with the sidewalk widths as each tract comes to us, so we probably don't need to have anything hard in this one, so. Is there anything else we need to add to this plan or chain?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, I still don't like the fact that there isn't a path by the river, but that's neither here nor there, and that won't change my decision for, voting for this.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I guess I make a motion to approve resolution number 16, series 2023, as presented with the exception of the on-street parking.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion by trustee Seifert to approve resolution number 16, series 2023, as presented with the addition that there will be on, I just want to get the street names right, so Rippling Way and Rislinda Loop will be no on-street parking. And that motion was seconded by trustee Clausen. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? Nay. Motion passes 4-1.
Okay. And I'll bring back an updated resolution at the next meeting
Okay.
for you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda, we're going to skip the appointments to various committees till we have a full board.
Oh, I understand.
Do you make a motion to move it, or?
It's just an action item, so we can just postpone it. We don't need a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well,
But
we can also, like we talked about, or Jeff had mentioned, discussing how
Okay.
relevant some of those boards may not be, or some of the committees may not be
I'd
active
rather
any
have
longer.
everybody here and we can discuss it. Okay.
Yes, Sam was concerned that he was going to be appointed to all these.
All these
We could
boards.
tell him that he was.
That's right.
We could tell him that he was to see if he watches the meeting.
Hey, yeah.
Should we send him a text message tonight?
Congratulations, text message.
Congratulations, yeah.
We just
Yeah, you're
removed
the winner
Kyle's
of all of
name and
them.
put yours on everything.
So then the next item on the agenda is the Garfield County Transportation Improvement Subcommittee, the CDOT letter review and approval, and I will turn this over to Administrator Lehman.
Yeah, you'll recall that Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan brought this up at a recent meeting, maybe 2 meetings ago. He also prepared a letter that was, or a memo that was left at your seats this evening. We have been meeting with other communities up and down the Colorado River Valley, talk about long-term transportation planning. Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan has been Silt's representative to that. I've sat in on a couple of those meetings as well. And it's really just a long-term effort to look at transportation needs along this corridor and how they will play into the larger role, the larger effort. And I think all of us feel like CDOT should be at the table. As yet, they have not, because it needs to come from their higher ups. And the letter that you have in your packet just would request CDOT's participation in this. And in fact, to chair the committee. I think everybody's a little bit sensitive to RAFTA being too involved in this. They don't want to look like there's anything that's been decided or stacked the deck, and that's because that's not the case, at least up to now. And so this would just get get CDOT involved in this. So I think tonight we'd just like you to take a look at that letter and then ask the mayor to sign it. Any questions about it or the process as of now?
Pretty straightforward.
no, as long as, if CDOT comes to the table and implements this, as long as they don't start taking money away from our interchange to go to this project, that's my biggest thing. I'd kind of like to see CDOT, and yes, this is a good idea, but I'd kind of like to see a lot of things that are much needed before we get to this point. Like our interchanges and the roadways, and I'd like to see some improvements there before we start talking, more buses and transportation on the roads that need work.
My sense is that it just draws more attention to the inadequacies of the roads we have. I don't know how they
That's
could
true.
miss how bad they are, but you know, I don't think it hurts that effort at all. I mean, any money for transit is from a totally different pot of money, at least as of now. And of course, the infrastructure bills as we know them are likely to change as a result of the debt ceiling conversation, which is a whole nother conversation. But I really don't think these are really long-term conversations. I mean, we're looking 10 plus years out, probably.
And that, okay.
No, I understand that, but you know, anything to get my 2 cents worth in against, you know, CDOT, you know, deferred
I hear
maintenance.
you. Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. And I think it's an issue that's gonna have to happen. I think CDOT should be the ones to chair the board. I think if, you know, the other option would be more likely to have RAF to be the head of the table, and I think it's a conflict of interest for them to be the ones running the discussion, so I think this is the best option to start with, and, you know, CDOT may say we don't even want any part of this discussion or to be, you know, especially the chair of it, so we'll have to see what they say.
My understanding is that CDOT has expressed some concern in that they don't chair other regional efforts in the state, and they're not sure they want to start it here or anywhere for that matter. They're already involved in IMTPR and other things, and so but I don't know what goes on in CDOT internally, but this is a way to kind of make them take a stance, I guess, or ask them to take a stance.
Right. All right. Any further discussion or a motion? Questions? He's gonna go
We
first.
just need a motion to have you sign that letter, I guess?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for the mayor to sign our letter for the Garfield County Transportation Improvement Subcommittee, CDOT letter review and approval.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by trustee Brittenall to have the mayor sign the Garfield County Transportation Improvement Subcommittee, CDOT, letter of review and approval. And that was seconded by trustee Poston. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Next up is the second reading of ordinance number 5, series 2023. An ordinance of the town of Silt, Colorado, amending and reenacting Title 15 of the Silt Municipal Code in reference to the following 2015 international codes: building code, plumbing code, fire code, mechanical code, plumbing code, property maintenance code, existing building code, and fuel gas code, adopting by reference the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code, repealing and replacing the National Electrical Code, National Electrical Safety Code, and repealing all ordinances of the town of Silt in conflict or inconsistence herewith. And I will turn this over to Community Development Manager Centeno.
Alrighty. So, I appreciate you guys letting me redline in between first and second readings. I did make some changes. Those were sent to you all. And there are 2 additional items of feedback that I did get after I sent the red lines, because it's really difficult to get everybody to give me feedback back in a certain time frame here. One of the big things I did want to talk about tonight is the phased implementation. I was originally told that we are not allowed to do a phased implementation for the 2018 IECC adoption. However, I went to a meeting last Tuesday that gave me different information. And that came from a board member of the Energy Code Council that the state of Colorado has adopted. We can adopt a phased implementation. So I did add that to the adoption. At the very end, I just added that we were going to adopt it per the phased implementation. And then the phased implementation is going to be separate from the actual adoption because we want to be able to add and remove or change the dates of this as needed. So we have until 2026 to be fully phased in. So in doing that, I did the first phase that's going to be starting in July would be just education until January. So that would give us 6 months to educate our contractors on the differences and what's going to take place next. And then the bulk of the implementation is going to happen in January. And then the third phase that I did a whole nother couple years out after that would be the blower door testing and the ductwork testing. I was informed that we are not allowed to amend out the blower door testing as I was originally told. So we ended up putting that phased out pretty far at the very end of the policy. I did put that the town withholds the right to add and remove elements of the phased implementation as deemed necessary. So that gives us flexibility to be able to change our policy without amending or changing the code that would trigger us to have to adopt the latest version of the code. So we do have that. And then the additional feedback that I did get about an hour ago is there was an additional study that for snow load, a case study that said that we can go as low as 35 pounds per square foot. We've been at 40. The only thing that I've heard contractors struggle with the 40 is stuff like carports or sheds. They have a hard time finding something that meets the 40 snow load. So we could technically go down to 35 if we did want to reduce that. Otherwise, we've been at 40 and we can maintain 40 and still be within the case study for our area. And then the other thing that I did get feedback on is decks that, let me find where I'm at here. I currently have it listed as a deck would only need a zoning review if it was not attached to a house as one of the elements. I did get feedback that that is still extremely difficult for people, that if they're just doing something that's less than 30 inches tall, attached or detached, it's going to be freestanding and hold its own weight. So we did have a request to amend number 2 out of the deck portion, which just says that it has to be detached. So that would mean that any deck that is attached or detached that's less than 200 square feet would only need a zoning review and not a building and zoning review. And other than that, I am available for whatever questions you have regarding any of the changes or red lines.
So if we don't do this, then anytime the most recent, because right now we're a few years behind, just in case there's any bugs or anything that need to get worked out of the system. Yes. But then if we don't do this, then it wouldn't matter what year you'd have, I mean, even if they changed it yearly, we'd still be required to update it yearly. I'm not saying they would, but.
Yeah, so we would be required to be in one of the 3 most recent energy codes.
Okay.
And so if the state ended up adopting the 24, we would have to be in the 18, 21, or 24, and that's why we're moving to the 18.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, I got your email late, but I do have your book
No,
back.
that's okay. I figured you were at state track.
So we have to adopt this 2018 energy code, conservation code. Unfortunately, what it's going to ultimately do is people are going to choose between getting a permit or just doing the work to not have to meet the code. There, in this code, you have to do heat load calculations, cooling load calculations, and you can only put equipment in that meets that size. So if you're going to add on a kitchen to your house, and then in 5 years you plan on adding a garage, and you're updating your heat system with the first remodel, you can only make it large enough to support your current remodel. It can't be sized for 5 years down the road. So in 5 years, now you gotta do a whole nother heat system or a cooling system. So it's gonna force people that are just gonna be, I'm not updating my heat or cooling system, gonna do the addition, and then they're gonna throw in whatever they need without a permit.
It
So-
doesn't make
And then there,
sense.
it's going to eventually require you to do high efficiency appliances. And along with those come renovations of gas line sizes, venting materials. I mean, you could have to demo 2 stories of your house to get the proper venting material from the basement out the roof. So by requiring people to do something that's so far out there, it's going to open up a whole nother mess of people doing what they want.
Think of that, yeah, you're right.
So, but we don't have a choice. Anything newer than 2018 gets even more strict on what you're allowed to do.
I didn't read that code, but okay, say your house gets damaged and and it damages the furnace or whatever. Do you have to update it to the most energy efficient thing, or can you put in the same?
It's going to be required to do those heat load calculations and install what meets the code. So I don't believe at that point an old piece of equipment is going to be grandfathered in.
Yeah, I was just
Since you're
curious.
removing that piece of equipment and replacing it with something new.
Yeah.
The other big one in the 2018 that I noticed is commercial buildings are required to rough in electrical for solar panels. So you may never put a solar panel on that building, but you're required to have it ready to go.
Yeah, I'm not against solar panels, but I don't like what they're doing. Yeah,
It's taking the rights of everyone away
exactly.
to do
That's exactly what
they
it's
want
doing.
and forcing everyone to do it the way somebody else wants to. So. But
And we do have some flexibility. If there's something that you want added to the phased implementation that would not start until 2026.
The whole book?
Yes.
And I don't think it matters how we phase it. It's eventually going to be there anyway. And next year they could come say everyone has to update to 2024 anyway.
They very well could.
Oh yeah, that's true. They always have that.
And if they're making us update to this one, they'll force everyone eventually to update to what they want them to be on.
No, I agree with you on that. Yeah, it's only a matter of time before they do it.
But I think on our end, if we can, like the decks, change it to detached or attached and save someone a hassle, then I'm all in favor of doing those things that we can at this level.
Okay.
And I don't remember exactly. I can't find that exact section. So if you made the red line or not, or if we need to amend it in the motion.
We'll need to amend it in the motion. That is something that was just brought to my attention.
Okay.
And that's on page 7, number 6. So it would be removing on page 7, number 2, under 8, under 6.
Page 7?
Oh, nope, mine just updated. It was page 8, sorry.
Okay.
Oh.
It was slow to update what page I was on.
So page 8, 6.
So it's number 2 under the A section.
Oh, A2.
Yep.
Is there any further discussion by the board before we open up the public hearing?
Got me thinking now.
All right, the time is now 8:21 PM, and I'll open up the public hearing for the second reading of ordinance number 5, series 2023. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, sir, there was none.
I do not show any raised hands, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And we have nobody here in the chambers with us, so the time is 8:22 PM, and I will close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
All right, I'll do it. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion approving the second reading of ordinance 5, series 2023, an ordinance of the town of Silt, Colorado, amending and reenacting Title 15 of the Silt Municipal Code in reference to the following 2015 international codes: Building Code, Residential Code, Fire Code, Mechanical Code, Plumbing Code, Property Maintenance Code, Existing Building Code, and Fuel Gas Code. Adopting by reference the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code, repealing and replacing the National Electric Code and National Electric Safety Code, and repealing all ordinances of the town of Silt in conflict or inconsistent herewith.
And the modification, or no?
And the modification of the decks not being attached.
Okay.
Is that close enough for the modification?
I think.
Yeah,
the
I can
direction,
make that
yeah.
red line.
Okay. All right. We have a motion by trustee Clausen. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I haven't had a chance to read in details the code, so I'll abstain.
Abstain, okay.
Mhm.
All right, so we have a motion by trustee Clausen to approve the second reading of ordinance number 5, series 2023, with the change to the deck requirements. That was seconded by trustee Britnall. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed?
Nay.
Abstain.
Motion passes 3-1 with trustee Poston abstaining. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Nicole.
Next up is the water treatment plant update with Jim Mann and Patrick Radabaugh, and I will turn this over to Administrator Lehman.
I believe Jim and Pat are on the line. At least I saw Jim, I think, pop up. Is Pat here too? Okay. Good enough. Thanks very much. And Trey's here too. So we've got all the experts in the room. If they're not here, they're virtual. I wanted to just spend a little bit of time tonight talking about kind of where we are in our decision-making process in terms of applying for or not the SRF loan, the state revolving fund loan that is due on June 15th. As you know, we've been working with our consultants and staff and with the state of Colorado, both CDPHE, DOLA, and the Power and Water Authority folks to kind of nail down a lot of the things that we've been, there's a lot of things that are involved in this project that I kind of wanted to just go through some of those today. And our whole goal in doing this, the whole goal, as you recall, in bringing Dewberry on as a sole source, sole sourcing them, not putting it out for RFP, because we didn't want to lose any time in moving toward this June 15th deadline. And everything's been pointing toward that deadline from day one. If you maybe go to the PowerPoint slides, perfect, maybe even the next slide. I wanted to just talk briefly, a couple things. I kind of wanted to go through some of the things that we've been talking about to prepare the board for a decision next May 30th, which is next Tuesday. So maybe before we go any further, I wanted to just get a show of hands from all of you to make sure that you can make it on that meeting, which would be next Tuesday night. It'd be the day after Memorial Day. So, and we need to get, as many of you in the room as possible to help evaluate the information that we're going to be presenting, and then make that decision. So, maybe a show of hands. Everybody good for next?
Zelia, what start time?
I'm thinking we're going to start that earlier.
I don't know for sure. Depends on where I get sent that day.
Okay. We can start it at a regular time if that helps get more people.
I won't know that till that morning.
Okay. Okay.
I have flexibility.
Okay. On Tuesday.
Yes, so what time?
I don't know. What do you all
There-
think? Would you maybe try to keep it at 7 and make sure everybody can
I
get?
was assuming 7, but yeah, we can do whatever.
Let's do 7.
So 7 would help me have
Let's
the most.
let's do 7 because I think that probably helps all of you who work out of town. Let's shoot for 7. So, and then you'll notice in my in the board packet, my memo, after careful review of the information available at this time, staff and consultants recommend that the board direct staff to apply for the Drinking Water Revolving Fund loan to cover costs of the Silt water treatment plant remodel. We'll bring you the value of that loan package at that meeting next week. It's likely going to be around $27 million. Once it's approved by you and once it's applied for from the drinking water folks, it can be reduced as they go through their processes, but it can't be increased. There's no obligation to accept the loan by voting next Tuesday to tell us to go forward with it. You can decline it at any time. So I wanted to go through this real quick, maybe some of the slides here. We've been working on this for a long time. We're assuming that the need for these plant upgrades have been demonstrated through this process. We obviously need the money to do that. The best source of funds is the Drinking Water Revolving Fund. I'm going to go to the next slide real quick, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this, but this is a three-legged stool. It's 3 different state agencies that make up the state revolving fund. The Water Quality Control Division of the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment is the primary agency. They also provide program administration and technical review of the information, and then they do all the federal reporting of all the grant funds and loan forgiveness funds and all that stuff goes through them. The Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority, they have the board. They're an authority under state law, so they have a separate board that will make the decision on whether or not we get the loan or not. They also made the decision that we are a disadvantaged community and made us eligible for that extra $2 million that we talked about earlier. They also hold the purse strings on the $5 million that we got in loan forgiveness as well. And then they disperse the funds. They're part of that federal reporting structure, and they actually have the money, and they provide the state match that's required by the federal government to make these loans happen. And then DOLA, they're the ones that wrote the business case for us that the Water and Power Authority approved. on the disadvantaged community stuff. And they've been very, very helpful. So we've got a decision matrix that we've been, well, let me back up real quick. We've looked at a bunch of other sources for funding. We talked with USDA. They have a process that's sort of maddening. What's the word I'm looking for? Maddening.
Unhelpful.
Yeah, unhelpful. Thank you. It's maddening. That's what I'm looking for. It's exactly backwards of the state revolving fund. So to do them jointly it's tough for both agencies, and they say they have worked together on things, but at this stage in our process, we would have to terminate our agreements with our engineer, our contractors, and start over with USDA. So it just makes absolutely no sense. So I think where we are is where we need to be. There are 2 loan application deadlines coming up, one June 15th and one January 15th. Our question right now is which date should we choose? I've already told you what our recommendation is, and that is to do it now. And then again, we're going to make that decision with your help, obviously, on next Tuesday at the special meeting. So we've been talking about a lot of things as we've gone through this process. Cost, the base principal forgiveness, that's the $5 million. The bill principal forgiveness, that's the $2 million. Those come from 2 different federal infrastructure bills. The disadvantaged communities design dollars, that's that $300,000 that we got as a result of the business case that DOLA wrote for us. We talked to USDA. We had meetings with them. We've got additional grants, FMLD. We have a grant of $450,000 in the spring grant cycle. We're talking with them now about whether or not we'll be eligible for additional funding in the fall grant cycle. We're kind of working through some questions they had on that. There's a chance that we might be able to tag on some emerging contaminants funding, which is a whole different set of federal funding. If we're able to get them to look at
PFAS.
No, the other one. Pat, what's the other one? It's the one we already have issues with.
TT? HF?
What?
Disinfectant byproducts?
Yeah.
No.
Disinfection byproducts we have issues with, and manganese, it's an emerging contaminant.
Manganese.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, manganese.
Yeah, manganese, thank you. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, magnesium was coming to mind, and I was like, that's not it. Come on, get the other M1.
I know
Sorry.
it's late and it's your birthday, so I know.
It is. I just had cake.
Well, happy
Couldn't wait
birthday.
for that sugar high to kick in.
It's gonna. So yeah, emerging contaminants. So there's a separate bit of funding there that we might be able to get. You'll recall that we did get referred for congressionally directed spending. I would say that and I've told you before, I'm not putting any hope in that. And now with the whole debt conversation that we're having, I've heard that they're looking at clawing back as much as 70% of that funding. So I'm not thinking about that, the debt crisis. And then sustainable strategies, maybe they'll come up with some additional funding between now and the time that we need that done in the fall. Okay, next slide. So continuing on, we've looked at interest rates. And Jim can talk about that if you have questions about that. The total expense over 20 years, we've looked at that. Construction costs, what is waiting 7 months due to costs? We can only all agree they go up. We've got our value engineering going on with our construction, our contractor, Garney, is working hand in hand with Dewberry. Obviously, we've had many conversations with you all about the average monthly cost to our ratepayers. SRF, their recommendation, that whole group of people, they were somewhat skeptical of our application early on, but I think as we've worked through the process, they're feeling a lot better about it. We've talked about the plant size, whether it's 2 MGD, 7.5 skids versus the 1, and that's all really part of value engineering, but it's been part of our conversation. We've talked about rate structure, and then the 20-year rate structure that Jim is working on for the board. And then here's this is part of your packet as well, and it's a little small on the screen, but all of these things. And I will say that I really didn't expect to get into great detail about these things, although I have these experts on the line in case you did have questions about the information that was in your packet, so they can answer some questions here. But I think more than anything else, I just wanted to give you a sense of what the kinds of decision-making processes we've been going through these last many months. Lastly, maybe that last slide, and we can come back to that one if we need to, but obviously, again, those deadlines are coming up. We're going to ask you next week to make a decision, and we can go into as much detail or as little detail as we want tonight. On the table tonight, and I meant for this to be in the packet and I just didn't get it in there, is the water, the tier rate structure, water utility operations cash flow analysis going out for many years that Jim produced, and it goes out to 2045. So all of those things are in the mix. They're all part of the calculation as to when we go through this process. At one point, not all that long ago, I was thinking maybe we ought to wait until January 15th. Maybe that congressionally directed spending would come. Maybe we'd get $3 million or so for that. Maybe it would come in too late for the bond. The bonds, if we go in June of 2015, the bonds will be shopped in the fall, probably the October, November timeframe. If we got a CDS earmark sometime before that, we could reduce that loan amount by that amount. What really got me off the fence, a couple things. Jim's analysis that we just saw, showing that prices are likely to rise, costs are likely to rise by that $3 million. If we got $3 million, which we have no clue what that might be. But the debt ceiling talks and the fact that that money may be clawed away anyway. And the biggest thing for me was that we learned, and Jim, you may be able to say this better than I can, but we learned from the Power and Water Authority that we've got about a $3 million, for lack of a better term, float. If we don't spend $3 million, that doesn't really count. That doesn't really count against us. We still have to pay it back, but we'll have the money if we were to get an earmark. We would just have that then. Can you say that better than I say it, Jim?
No, Jeff, I think you said it pretty accurately. I mean, the reality is when they issue the bonds, if you end up having reduced project costs or you end up getting additional grants, really they can handle up to a couple, $3 million without causing a problem. The issue is federal tax rules would look at that if it's more than $3 million as an overissuance, and that creates a problem for their bonds and the tax exempt status of the bonds. And so that is kind of the way they look at it, that as long as it's under about $3 million, they're okay with having some excess issuance. If you're offsetting it with some grants or something like that. And basically what they do is they turn it into essentially a capitalized interest account where they're using those proceeds to offset some of your interest costs throughout the life of the debt obligation.
So
I would just, my last statement on all of that, as it relates to the CDS earmarks, is that they come out of a fund that's administered by the EPA, and there's a whole different set of rules and regulations associated with that. Trey and I are going to meet with, and I think Pat, we're going to meet with EPA. I think it's Wednesday this week, to kind of get a sense of what that's going to entail. And we've been told to expect quite a few more rules in how that money is impacted. Should we get it? So that was the other thing that really I just felt like we really need to go now and get this thing rolling and see where we are.
Because it's all tied to a timeline between the application and then issuing the bonds, and then basically you're tied about the amount of funds that you could consequentially receive from all those sources, because you're going to be an overissuer. That's what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay. So even though we have those availabilities, we are tied to how much we can accept depending on the time we apply for, because we would be saying the net amount that we are asking for at they start.
We're going to know, Pat, working with Garney, by next Tuesday, we're going to have a good idea what that ask is going to need to be, correct?
Yes, you are correct. We should have their preliminary number next week, and they'll be dialing in all the way up until the application date on the 16th. And then we're going to refine it all the way until the actual loan commitment date in September, October. I forget the date, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you'll know what that number is for the initial application, but we can, like I've said, we can ratchet that down as we need to over the course until they shop the bonds. So we've got plenty of time to keep working with Guardian and knock that number down. Okay. What we don't want to do is
ask for less.
Go too low and then need more.
Okay. Yeah.
So we don't want to count those federal chickens until they're in our pocket, I think.
Got it.
So happy to answer questions, have a conversation, let these guys talk a little bit about it if you'd like. And maybe what kinds of things would you like to hear from us next week? But how would you like it? Is there a way you'd like to see this presented, or is there anything we can do to kind of help you make the decision? Are we on the right track? How are you feeling about things?
A generous donor decided to give us $20 million, yeah.
That would be perfect. I feel I would like to go a little more into the different sources of funds and understanding Okay, so did I understand it correctly that you only have that $3 million that you could potentially receive from them? So there is a cap? Did I understand that incorrectly?
We had, you're talking about the congressional directed spending.
Congressional, the several sources of funds that you
Yeah,
elaborated
that
on.
one we applied to all three of the members of our congressional delegation, both senators and our representative. All three of them referred our project to the Appropriations Subcommittee, I think is what it's called. And then they sit around and they talk about which projects on their list they can fund. Now, this is one of the things that Deborah Figueroa can be helpful with. She has relationships with both senators' offices, and she can ask them to put in a special word for us. Or it's not just a referral, it's some horse trading with other politicians that are in the room on those conversations. So we got a $2.1 million earmark referral from Senator Hickenlooper, and 3.3 from Senator Bennett. And then Representative Boebert put us in for the whole amount into her
Proposal.
yeah.
Okay.
So
we want to have those in place. However, we want to have the number that we want to ask for, and then it's going to be a base number in between those.
Yeah, we just don't even have a feel for that at all, what that might be. I mean, they could come back with, my understanding is that at some point during the summer, the reconciliation happens.
Make more sense.
And then they come back and they tell us, okay, we put you in for X. You won the lottery. And then if a 2024 budget is passed and signed by the president, then starting in the third quarter of 2023, that money would, ideally would be available for the project.
Okay.
But we've seen years where no budget was passed for, well into the next year.
Senate has to agree and
Right.
pass.
So I don't think it's wise in the least to put our eggs in that basket unless we had a lot of time, which I don't think any of us believe is the case.
Okay.
So I think we can get, I'm very confident that we're going to be able to be loaned the entire amount of the project. So whether that's $27 million or $25 million, whatever it is, we're going to get that SRF loan. I'm hoping I'm not talking out of my hat on that. We also have principal forgiveness in the amount of up to $7 million. I keep saying that because that's what people are telling me, up to. So I don't know exactly what that number is. I'm fairly confident we're going to get a sizable piece of that. So that'll bring us down into a better place. And then we've got the 450 from FMLD. We're going to talk to EIAF again next week or this week. That's DOLA money. So we're still ringing every bell we can to find more money.
And Jeff, so since it's a revolving drinking water line of credit, as we are getting those funds, hopefully, so we can apply those grants against the principal on the line of credit? Is that?
It's not a line of credit, it's a loan.
It's a loan, it's not a line of credit.
It's a loan with some principal forgiveness.
And now your question, I think I know what she's at. If we go ahead and they shop the bonds and the bonds are put in place and all of a sudden we get $10 million grant, no. We have to have them bonds in place a certain number of years before you can pay towards a huge principal payment on them.
Because of the secured interest negotiated. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That was a silly question.
Thank you,
Okay.
Trey.
Thank you, Trey.
Leave it to the water guy to answer the finance questions.
But, you know, even if we got that, it could set an account to help pay it off over the years, or we use it to upgrade the infrastructure.
We can hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't turn away any money.
Yeah.
Ask Amy, I'll find a place to use it.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing is to come back and see where Garney's at. If they've actually engineered anything of a value.
And I, you know, since we've had a compressed time frame, I'm not sure where we're going to be next week. But I do know they'll be working through the summer to continue to whittle down those prices if they can.
Okay.
I think we'll know how, well, I don't even want to say that. Pat, how, to what degree, where are we going to be next Tuesday night?
Next Tuesday, they'll probably have a rough draft of their cost, and that one that one usually comes in really high, scary for everybody, but then we start nailing down the things that are outstanding that need to have further investigation on costs. We've tried to do that some already in terms of like building type and geotechnical conditions. So I don't know, hopefully they come in reasonably, but the whole point of this initial one is to have the cost model set up so we can see where we need to refine the costs, and then it will always be coming down as we better define things going forward after that.
So we're not anticipating it going up after that number.
That's exactly what we're trying to say.
Okay.
And I just spoke, Jeff. I will be here Tuesday. I'm not working on Tuesdays yet until the next Tuesday. I start working Tuesdays again. So
Okay.
I was such a habit of working on Tuesdays lately that I forgot. So
Everybody good still with 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I would expect, well, I don't know, I guess I'd expect a presentation similar to this, only maybe a little heavier on numbers. I guess I'm not sure exactly
Yeah.
what would help you.
Numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers.
Numbers.
Yeah.
Put the number out there.
Yeah, some comparison to some neighboring water plants, maybe in length of functionality in years. See what they're doing, what kind of products they're getting.
I think, to some degree, I think we can probably do that. I think we should, we'll put it out that we're gonna have this meeting. I mean, we put it out tonight, hoping we'd get some folks from the community out to ask questions or to have a conversation. So we'll try again, and maybe that's I've been kind of thinking along those lines, Andreas. Maybe we need to have a short presentation on, if you're just, I talked to somebody the other day who didn't know this was going on. So, maybe we need to start with the basics. Here's where we are, here's where we're going, and here's how we got there. Maybe we need to do a short presentation about that, which we've done before, so it's going to be a little bit repetitive for those of us who've seen the whole thing many times, but for those who haven't seen it, it's probably worth a review.
Yeah, well, shortly after I left the board last time, we had just implemented the plan. Yeah, yes,
to do
the
the master
contractor
plan.
to do the,
Right.
yes, correct.
Right.
So,
And now we're reacting to
the plan.
the plan. Yeah. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, fellas. Appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Happy Monday.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. You too, Jeff. Happy birthday.
Thanks.
All right, next up is the April 2023 financial report, and I will turn this over to Treasurer Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for the month of April. 33% of the year has elapsed. We are doing well with our sales tax. We are at about 38% of what we had anticipated getting in our revenues, which is 19% higher than we had gotten this time last year. Our use tax, we're at about 39%. We are pretty steady with our trash service fees, water service fees, wastewater service fees, and our irrigation fees. We're right at what we had anticipated as far as revenue goes. We are doing well with our revenues in all of our funds, short of the Victims Assistance Fund is a little lower at this moment, and the Park Impact Fund is a little lower. Other than that, we're doing fairly well. There are two of our funds for our expenses that we are quite high on, and that's just because we've ordered the park equipment and the fall protection, and so we won't be spending much more out of those funds, but they were appropriated. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions?
No questions
No?
today.
Nothing.
I do not.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Treasurer Tucker.
Thank you.
All right, next up is administrator and staff comments.
I don't have anything.
Nothing? Nothing?
I'm just happy to see Andrea back.
All right.
Thank you. I should say a few words too. I'm really happy and excited to be back. I'm super excited to just dive in and once again learn as much as I can and come back even stronger to help our cute, amazing town of Silt.
All right. Justin, let's jump into board comments and staff.
Let's see, that's where we're at, let's do it.
Let's just do it.
No, that's fine.
We're so boring.
I thought we were going this way.
No, that's perfect. The DMV to go this last week was here. I know that my son went and got his replacement on his license. Super convenient. So let's keep coming. Make sure we have people still coming, so they keep doing it. Makes it an easy option for people. If you're walking your dogs over at the dog park, just be aware of the high river and stuff going on over there. Follow any signs and stuff that's going on because it's for our safety to try to keep you away from the edge. It's too close to the water because you don't want to take a bath in that thing right now because it'll take you away. And then look forward to just a lot of the work we're doing this year with the parks and stuff.
Trustee Clausen?
I don't have much. I mean, I had one comment. You know, all of the signs in front of Town Hall that were put there years ago that say, you know, customer parking and everything. My thought is just get rid of them, you know, because they're all kind of falling down and everything, and they're not really paid attention to. But just to clean up the front of Town Hall, just, you know, pull the things out and, you know, clean that up. And how's the what is it? The Xeriscape demonstration garden? Because I saw flowers out there and now they're gone.
Well, when the 4-H group came in this weekend to plant all the flower pots, there was a miscommunication and who was here with them had them plant flowers in there, and that wasn't for the flowers.
Oh, okay.
We have not went and got the Xeriscape that's going to go in there. We're hoping to get that done here soon. So we took the flowers out and planted them, and we added some to some of the pots and other things throughout town.
Oh, okay, thanks. And I guess thanks to the 4-H for planting all the flowers in the pots in town. And
Sustainable Growers was the name of the
Uh-huh.
4-H club that did it.
oh, okay. All right, well, thank you to them, and keep up the good work, Steph. Thank you.
That it? Oh,
Trustee Seifert?
Congratulations to Andrea back. And one other thing, school is going to be out pretty soon, people, so kids are gonna be out and about. They're already, in the evenings, they're out playing. Slow down. I've seen people flying down Grand, and it's just, there's a lot of kids at that playground in that corner already in the evening, so. People slow down, they're it's gonna get warm out, and they're gonna be out later and later in the evening, so.
Okay.
And Trey, I think I spoke over you. It was your turn for staff comment.
I didn't have nothing. I was
Okay.
That's all right. Yeah, we're all right. The only thing I have is along with the driving of all the citizens in town, if all of town staff can please obey traffic laws in town, the stop signs are for everybody, texting and driving. I mean, you guys are representing the town when you're in those vehicles, so please follow all the traffic laws. I'm pretty sure all our turn signals work. Be the example for what everyone else should be doing. Other than that, nothing. Next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All right. Trustee Seifert, motion to adjourn, seconded by Trustee Poston. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for the large packet tonight, but we breezed right through it, so.
Hey, we're done an hour early.
Yeah.